Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Sloppy Lab. This is Bottom of the Beaker, the weekly show about the design, ducks, and strategy of Keyforge. Everyone, and I mean everyone's favorite unique deck game. Expert sommeliers will tell you that for peak flavor, fine wine should sit between 34 and 57 years. Well, however long you age your wines, my co host tonight will tell you that the best way to enjoy it is with a nice helping of cheese and quackers. Of course, talking about Quick Draw 3457. How are we doing this evening, Quick Draw?
I'm doing well, thank you. What are your favorite quackers?
Gosh, that's a great question.
Do you like Ritz or do you like Mallards? Which ones do you like better?
Well, I don't know what mallards are. Is that a Pennsylvania thing?
No, they're quackers. They quack, you know what I mean?
Oh, hot dang. Oh, no. Pulled the one over on me. Oh, my goodness.
Feels good when that
Mhm.
happens.
This is one of the benefits of being a parent that nobody warns you about at the offset. You end up having an awfully nice selection of snacks on hand pretty much always.
I can say as someone without kids that I still enjoy plenty of snacks on hand at all time.
Well, you are in an excellent place for pretzels, especially. You have quite a selection of pretzel makers, manufacturers. I don't know what you say, but there's just like
Do
so
we?
many brands of pretzels in Pennsylvania.
I didn't know that we were special in that regard. I just enjoy my pretzels.
I know. You got your Utz. Utz is like right there, right?
Well, I mean, right there in the same state as me. Yes.
Okay. Maybe it was closer to me
I
when I
think it
was
is.
over there.
I mean, I do have a good selection of pretzels in the grocery store, but I just kind of assumed that everyone did.
All right. I guess I thought it was, yeah, like a whole Pennsylvania wide thing, but
I don't realize how good I have it, I guess.
spoiled for pretzels. I had a good segue for there too, but I forget what it was.
Yeah, I think you blew it because pretzels are not quackers at all.
They're not
They're
quackers.
totally different food group.
Well, in any event, we have a fun topic in store for everyone this evening on this fine day slash morning with your breakfast cereal as you're listening to Bottom of the Beaker. A nice clickbaity topic. Are key cheats good for the game? Question mark.
Why are we talking about key cheats now, of all times?
Actually, the last guest that we had on, Nick, was lovely to talk to. And in the chat this evening, welcome to the Cloggin. Talk to us a bit about the interactivity in the game and the interaction model. And I think this was a topic that we had on the backlog for a while, but it kind of brought it to the fore of my thinking at least. Key cheats, a long held part of the game since the very beginning, though you can't argue that by their very nature, they don't kind of break or step outside of the interaction model that the game presents, right? So there's this kind of back and forth contract, if you will, of like, I do a thing on my turn, you get a turn to respond, and we go back and forth. Eventually, I put myself in a situation where I'm threatening to forge a key. I say, check, and you do your darndest to make me not forge that key. And key cheats say, no, 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 joke's on you. I'm just going to forge it right now.
So it's kind of important to think of the context, like you just talked about, of Keyforge being a game where you cannot do any actions during your opponent's turn. It doesn't have counter spells. It doesn't have any interrupts of any sort. And so that part makes the key cheat a like inherently different card type than anything else that exists because it really lets you get around or take advantage of that inability of your opponent to interact with you. So the question we kind of want to ask and go through is like, is this inherently a good thing? Or is this bad for the game? Is this sustainable, or why are certain ones more problematic than others? So we'll talk about that. I think it would probably make sense to go through the game sort of chronologically, right? To kind of see how this has shifted over time and how players' perceptions of key cheats may have changed over time as well, right?
Totally. So, for the folks with us on stream, we went through the trouble of putting together a list of the key cheats that are out there with, some asterisks that we'll explain away and wave our hands when the time comes. But this is every key cheat that's in the game currently, when it was first printed. And we're also just kind of making note of how many key cheats were present in each set as they came to be. Yeah, so we'll go through those. I don't know. I want to talk too, like, there's kind of the good and the bad and the ugly with key cheats. You mentioned a couple things, but maybe before we kind of get going, or we can kind of take it in stride, I have some things that I do like about key cheats, as much as they get maligned now. But I think there are some things that they do well and really do contribute to the game. And we can start with Coda too. So in Coda, the key cheats that were printed, there were 5 of them, right? There was Key Abduction, Epic Quest, Key of Darkness, Chota Hazri, Key Charge. The descriptions of all those, actually, the link to the spreadsheet is in the show notes. So, starting with Coda, like, what value did these bring? I have some answers I can dive in, but anything that you want to kind of jump us off with there?
The one thing that I remember when this set came out, when the game was released, and people were talking about like Key Charge and Chota, like, are these good cards? I remember that there was early on a very strong opinion that Key Charge and Chota Hazard were bad cards because they
Hmm.
cost an extra amber to forge. And I think as players started to play them, they started to realize the value that that gave. And those two have shifted. But the other three that exist in Coda really like don't have as much value unless they have the proper setup to go along with them. So Key of Darkness, I'm not sure if I've ever seen Key of Darkness forge a key. It says forge a key at +6. Have you done it?
You are making Carl cry right now. You're
Carl,
making
okay, so
Carl.
Carl is like literally how many Coda decks are there? 1.5 million?
Yeah.
It's a crazy number, and I think Carl might be the only one that can say that they like can actually do it multiple times. So literally one
Hmm.
in a million. Some other people out there listening, you probably have done it before with Key of Darkness. Maybe you've done it twice with the same deck with Key of Darkness. I apologize. Key of Darkness says forge a key at +6 current cost if your opponent has no amber, or if sorry, forge a key at +6 current cost. If your opponent has no amber, forge a key at +2 current cost instead. Coming into Shadow's House, it is possible to get them at 0 amber and then forge for 8. Needs a lot of work to do that, and at the same time, are you going to want to forge for 8 all the time? Maybe, maybe not. The other two, besides the Untamed ones, are Epic Quest and Key Abduction. Both of these, I think, more plausible to use in Coda. Epic Quest, the more knights you have in Sanctum, the better. The more archiving you have, the better. Key Abduction really was about coming alongside Battlefleet or a really good Logos suite of lots of archiving and drawing, like a library access combo, things like that. So those were they're feasible, but they're not quite the prevalence that we saw of Key Charge and Chota back then.
And notable too that Untamed got two key cheats, right? Both have what functionally equivalent play effects. One an action, the other a creature. Play lose one, and then you may forge a key at current cost. So really interesting that the designers decided to put essentially two copies of the same card, one with the creature type stamped on it, and the other with the action type stamped on it. That leads me into one of the things that I like about this suite in particular. These cards got to underscore sort of what's core to the houses that they are present in, right? So Chota and Key Charge getting two and Untamed right away underlined, yeah, this is the burst house, right? Like this is the house that's making lots of money. Look, we gave you not one but two cards that are going to let you make keys out of the usual flow of key making, and we made them. We didn't want to give you two key charges in the same deck, I guess, but we'll actually do. Can you get multiple key charges? No, right?
No, you cannot. Key Charge and Chota are each limited to one. You can have both, but not two of one of them.
Interesting too. I wonder now, actually, now that we're thinking about it, I wonder if they set up the algorithm initially and they were like, yeah, we have this way to limit it to one copy of a card in the deck. We kind of want you to get two of this one, but
Hmm.
it's going to be extra work to make like a limit two. Let's just make two copies of the same thing and limit each to one. I wonder.
Interesting.
But anyway, maybe. Anyway, but anyway, I love the fact that we got both of these because it kind of like promotes Untamed as the Amber making a rush house. So that's pretty cool. It kind of gives you a nod towards the identity of the house. Same thing with Key of Darkness. Yeah, this is not a great key cheat compared to some of the others, but it does underscore like, yeah, Shadows, lots of steel. It kind of gives you a little bit of a side quest, if you will, to making this thing happen. So there's kind of that element too. And I like the symmetry with TMTP, right? So steal all that they have in excess of 6, and I guess Key of Darkness being that +6. There's not really kind of a mechanical overlap, but there's kind of an aesthetic symmetry that I appreciate. And then the other two, right? Epic Quest, I think, is actually one of my favorites. I like the idea of key cheats, even though they tear down a little bit the interaction model, right? They chip away at the interaction model. I like it when they present to you a side quest. No pun, no pun intended,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. You intended. You meant it.
It was intended. They present to you a side quest, right? Something that you have to do that's outside your like normal flow of playing, right? Key charge, Chota Hazri. If you're doing the stuff that Untamed wants to do anyway, like you're going to be in a position where you can forge with either of these. Epic Quest, and even maybe Key Abduction a little bit in the Coda days outside of combo things. Like you had to kind of like play towards them. That gave your opponent sort of another access to interact with you if they saw what you were doing, right? Which
Hmm.
I kind of like. So I like key cheats as, hey, here's a detour you can take. We can interact with each other on the path of that detour, and that's pretty cool.
It is cool, and the interesting thing about those detours or those quests, as you may call them, is they often come to forge a key at no cost, but they require you to do that setup and planning, and some drawbacks involve that too. Like Epic Quest is like you could have this really nice board of 4 beefy knights that your opponent may not be able to kill, but you got to archive them and wait to get a free key. So it's like there's the drawback there you have to think about. Might Makes Right, which came out in AOA. Maybe I'm jumping ahead a little bit. You need to destroy a bunch of creatures. So like you have this big board. Is it really worth it to destroy your entire board to forge a key at no cost? Maybe it is. So yeah, those are kind of interesting ways to go about the key cheat route, which is like playing a different game than just saying like I'm going to get to 6 amber and forge. It's trying to do something different, a little side quest as you put it.
And then the other thing that I like about key cheats, what I think they lend to the game mechanically, is they guarantee, or they can guarantee, a sense of inevitability. Right? We talked about this an episode or two back. Things that games need, they need a way to make sure that they come to a close, and they need to make sure they actually end. So your key charges and chodas, kind of as you mentioned in our notes here, they gave the rush decks an answer to the TMTP doorstep control-y heisty decks, right? So you're not just kind of on your back foot having to dance around Team TP and doorstep. You have a way to punch through, and that gives it a really nice tool
Yeah.
to make sure that things get moving along.
I think that context is extremely important when asking the question, are key cheats good for the game? Because I think, especially in Coda, they were necessary. I think if they didn't
Mm,
exist, then I don't think you would have ever seen decks, besides TMTPs and maybe doorsteps, but TMTP especially is the one that would come to mind, where you would see so many TMTPs in Coda, which we already did, but like you'd have no answer for it if you didn't have a key cheat. Like a lot of those Shadows decks could come and just capture anything you have in excess of 6, maybe combo it with a Lash of Broken Dreams deck so that they could just go dis until you go above 8, then go to TMTP. It would be not a, I don't want to say boring, it sounds bad because I do like Coda, but it would have been a very different game, and it would have been a lesser game, in my opinion, to not have the decks that allow you to get around those very powerful cards like Lash and TMTP.
totally. Having Untame's identity be this real burst, this real high amber generation thing is great. Having TMTP doorstep exist is also great. There's a nice kind of balance, counterbalance there. I think without kind of the Chota and the key charges, the TMTPs are going to dominate. All of a sudden, you just need a skeleton key, and there's this threat looming over you the rest of the game that you're not going to be able to do what your wants to do without getting really punished.
Well, we're not going to go through every single key cheat that exists, but I think it's good to look at that initial historical context of Coda and what key cheats meant back then, and what do they mean now. I don't know. Do you want to skip, like, fast forward the whole way to like Grim Reminders and Amber Skies? I mean, I think the others, there's other in between that are interesting key cheats. We can come back to them in a minute, but like I think the historical context with Grim Reminders is like totally different than what key cheats were back in Coda. So I think when Grim Reminders came out, everyone was like, "Oh my gosh, every house has a key cheat. This is so good." And when you look back, like you did the numbers on this, I was surprised to see Dark Tidings, by our definition of key cheat, which we'll talk a bit more about in a bit. Dark Tidings has 9, like, which is a lot
Yeah.
more than I thought. Worlds Collide has 8, 3 of those being in Saria, though. Grim Reminders is not the first set that had a ton of key cheats. AOA had 8. What Grim Reminders had was a lot of support and setup to enable those key cheats, every single one of them, and it made them easier to pull off than they ever were before, even compared to Coda Untamed Rush, where you just drop like a Hunting Witch and a couple Dust Pixies and you got yourself a key there, the key cheat. This was like a totally different level in Grim Reminders. I think that's what makes the difference. I think that's why this becomes a question, like, are key cheats good for the game? Because we see in Grim Reminders that like Ecto Charge coming in a house that can mill your entire deck is very easy to just, like, give you an amber and essentially say, like, if you have 5 amber, you can forge a key, which is two amber better than like the Chota and the key charge were. And then you have some other cards that were brought back in Grim Reminders, like the Dark Discovery. Dark Discovery is one that, like, when it came out in Dark Tidings, it was really rare. If you could forge a key with Dark Discovery and Dark Tidings, you pulled off a big accomplishment. It was a big deal. And then in Grim Reminders, it comes along with cards like Beam of Forgetting and Kariki Germinator, cards that, like, many cards in house that can stack the bottom of the deck and get you that free key with the Dark Discovery. So that to me is the major difference with key cheats and Grim Reminders. It's not that there's more of them. It's not that they're all like insanely better. A lot of them are the same cards that existed before, except they're coming in houses that are just like catered to that specific key cheat.
I think that's largely right. Calling back to what we were just saying about Coda, one of the reasons why I thought Key Charge and Chota were okay in their context was Untamed didn't have lots of steal effects, didn't have lots of amber control, didn't have lots of like archiving. It got key cheats as a way to underscore the things that its house specifically was really trying to do, but were also getting undercut by what some of the other houses were trying to do. And I think where we're seeing, as you're saying, some of the key cheats in Grim Reminders running rampant, kind of relative to the Coda days, right? Is because you have just all of those things in, say, Geistoid, and it's not that the key cheat is shoring up a weakness of the house. It's just feeding off of all the other strengths, which is just a really potent combination.
Yeah, Geistoid in Grim Reminders had some capturing with like Halidee Festival and some other cards that can capture a little bit less, like Veil Ectoplasm. It had milling, which is specifically what you want to do for Ecto Charge. It had a board wipe in Winds of Death. It had artifact control on a couple levels, and so it was like kind of the house identity was like doing everything. And then on top of that, you have one of the key cheats that's easiest to pull off of any that existed in the game. And so that's really like what sets it apart more than just the fact that Ecto Charge in a vacuum is a great card, because Ecto Charge in Winds of Exchange was not all that easy to pull off if you were lucky enough to open one with an anomaly.
Yeah, I actually listed Ectocharge twice on our sheet. Once in Winds of Exchange, and then again in Grim Reminders. Both of those as being kind of introductory printings for the card. They were differently printed, right? But they were also just very different beasts in each of those eras.
And I think that's about the enablers, right? Like it's about what is built in to support those. Like I don't think that key cheats are necessarily a bad thing for the game. They get around that interaction that you talked about, and they take advantage of the fact that you can't interact with your opponent during their turn. But they're not a bad thing, and they, like we talked about, they do provide answers. But it becomes problematic when they're surrounded by the other things. So like the Dark Discovery example to me is the best way to put it, because like Dark Discovery was a bad card in Dark Tidings, and it took
Mm.
up 3 card slots, and then suddenly in Grim Reminders you could have an Untamed or an Unfathomable house with the right setup for it, and you're going to get a free key cheat every game. It's a big difference.
I'd like to see the key cheats responding to other houses preying on one of your supposed strengths, right? Like imagine a world where you have the booze, maybe you have the holiday festivals, right? But there's no in here somewhere. There's no archiving. But all the other houses in this other world too have tools that are chipping away at your discard pile or something. I'm not sure. But you have some sort of payoff for like, I'm cashing in on my hauntedness and my extreme hauntedness and I'm getting a key. But having the other setup there too, where you're gonna like, one, not be getting preyed on for doing the thing that you're trying to do, and then two, getting to cash in with the enablers is just very potent.
So the chat's asking, what is a key cheat? This is probably the good time for us to kind of define what we're including in here when we give these numbers. And people looking at the screen right now on the chat are going to see that we have a few in there. They're like, wait a minute, what are those doing there? And those would be Tachyon Manifold and Ancestral Timekeeper. So why don't you give us a definition of what we're counting as key cheats here in this discussion?
Yeah, totally. And if those raise your eyes, make room on the forehead because we include Ceaseforge in our count as well on the Dark Kiting camp. Were there any others that were questionable? That might have been it.
I think that was the questionable list. We actually debated it a bit beforehand too. It's not really like, we're gonna use a loose definition here, but like actually if you look on decks of Keyforge, they will also give the trait. I think they give the trait of key cheat for Tachyon Manifold and Ancestral Timekeeper as well.
They do. Yeah, so a little bit of a loose definition, but I'm thinking of it as a way that you can ensure a key without giving your opponent a chance to rebut that key, right? So Tachyon Manifold makes it in because I can take a sequence of actions that guarantees me a key. I get to check, activate Tachyon Manifold, immediately go to my next turn and forge. There was kind of no window for you to come in, make a steal, play a miasma or what have you. And that's a little loose, but that's kind of how I'm thinking about it.
The Timekeeper is the same thing. It's a time walk where you get to check, you take an extra turn, you forge the key. Cease Forge is where I think like, I'm a little on the fence about it, because Cease Forge, your opponent does have the chance to interact. Your opponent has the ability to not only destroy the artifact, but also take you off check, perhaps in the same turn. They have a
Mm-hmm.
chance to play their own miasma the turn before you forge with it. So it to me is a bit more debatable in the category, but we counted it.
When you look at your Archon card and you see Tachyon Manifold, in your mind you go boom key. Like boom, that's key three. When you see Cease Forge, you're like, all right, I'm gonna be forging key three with this. When I see Ancestral Timekeeper, I'm like, maybe I'm gonna
Maybe I
like.
should open a new deck.
And I like Ancestral Timekeeper a lot. Actually, one of my favorite to play Grim Reminders decks features the clocks, and they're like very, very kind of like fun and fiddly in this deck. But it's also very much setting up a like side quest type thing for you to go down. I have pulled off the Time Creeper extra turn, but it has almost never. I don't think I've ever used it to force a key.
I think I have. I have a
Yeah.
couple clock decks. One of my name decks is one, which I've only played a couple of times. But I think I've done it before. I think I've forged a key with it. I don't believe I've ever forged with Tachyon Manifold. I have had someone do it against me, but
Hmm.
I've never done that one myself.
Have you ever actually forged with Revive Zaorha?
Once. I did once. The only deck I have with Revive Zorha is my most powerful deck that I have. And it's honestly like, this is not really like, I mean, this is, I guess, a humble brag. It's like, it's so rarely allowing a key that like Revive Zorha is never going to forge a key.
Oofa doofa. Yeah, you'd swap that for a spooky charge.
The deck would be insanely better if it had a spooky charge because it is an untamed Revive Zorha. If it had a spooky charge instead, like lights out, that's just an insanely better deck.
So I just remembered the segue that I had way back at the beginning of the
Okay,
episode.
we're gonna record it now, and then you just edit it, put it at the beginning.
So quick draw. This is our last episode we're recording in September. It is the first episode that's going to drop in October. And I know you are a fan of the spooky season.
Was it worth it?
It was so worth it.
Okay,
For that disgusted sigh.
I'm happy for you then. I'm genuinely happy for you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And conversation derailed.
Totally.
Um,
Achievement unlocked. Key forged.
I'm gonna just pass it back to you. I don't know what we were even talking about anymore.
Yeah, I lost my train of thought too.
Of course you did. Dang it, JT. Foiled again. Okay, we were redefining. We're saying Tachyon Manifold counts, Cease Forge counts, Timekeeper
Mhm.
counts. I could see the Timekeeper being part of that quest category you talked about.
The funny thing is too, when I see, to me, my reaction to reading an Archon list, seeing Ceaseforge in there has a stronger like neuron trigger of like, yeah, that's a key cheat than Ancestral Timekeeper.
Hmm.
Even though on paper, I think you could make the logical argument that Ancestral Timekeeper is more capable of ensuring a key. I think the things that need to line up for that to happen are just harder to line up than the cases where Ceaseforge does it. I don't know. That's just how it feels to me. I see. Maybe it's because I just believe Ceaseforge is a better card. Like that's very possible.
I wonder, are you including Ceaseforge in this conversation because it disables your own key cheats?
I could just be sour grapes on Ceaseforge. I don't know. Is that what we're saying? Very possible. Very possible.
I mean, I love Ceaseforge. I think it's one of the best cards in the game, period.
Hmm.
So I'm a big fan. I still think it's debatable whether it belongs in the category of key cheat.
There was another, for Grasping at Rails, there was another kind of category of cards that fall into a similar camp. Key safes are another category card that folks will talk about. These are cards, and yeah, this is all kind of semantics, but these are cards that instead of forcing a key right now without giving your opponent a chance to respond, they are cards that will attempt to protect your natural forge on your next turn, right? So your opponent still gets a turn. There's still potentially things they could do, but these are cards that are going to try and ensure that you actually do lock in that forge. And the line between like, yeah, this is guaranteed, or no, this is disruption with a fancy bow on it is pretty blurry. Like I'll admit, when I think of a deck like Veggie the Bandit Survivalist, one of my favorite Winds of Exchange decks, has no key cheats in it, but it feels an awful lot like it does because let me pull up the deck.
It's got the major disruption cards you're looking for in Winds of Exchange, which include Befuddles, Abyssal Sight, and I think maybe even the best one, the best key safe, as you put it, is Corner the Market, which just
Right,
guarantees they can't play anything out of hand to take you off check.
right. So yeah, Befuddle, you can get sort of a soft safe, as it were. Abyssal Sight, you can take their answer out of hand, but also see if the way is clear. That information is often enough just to let you know what hoops you have to jump through to guarantee a key. And then, like you're saying, Core of the Market can lock things down and say, yeah, if you don't have an answer on board, or I guess a scrap effect that'll do the job, then the key's happening.
Hmm.
So yeah, no actual key cheat, but a lot of ways to protect those forges.
And these cards are all, described as disruption in the traditional DOK stats. That's kind of where I see them. Maybe it's my bias of just being familiar with DOK, I would see these more as disruption as opposed to a key safe because with the exception of Corner of the Market, well, even with Corner of the Market, like they're all still situational whether or not it's going to get you a key. Whereas a key cheat is like, yes, I am forging a key now, game over, done. But Control the Weak, you have to have a valid target for them that does not have the ability to take you off check or to do a key cheat of their own. Same with Befuddle and Abyssal Sight. Perhaps you're looking to take away a card that could take you off check. Maybe they have two cards that can take you off check. Brain Drain, same thing. So like to me, Key Safe might be a bit strong because they're still situational. They're still looking for the right setup and the point in the game, and most importantly, the right opponent and the right deck that you're playing against that maybe only has Amber Control in one house to get them out of that house. So they're more situational to me, but I think reasonable minds could disagree on that.
Yeah, totally. And it's a messy kind of distinction. To me, it comes down a lot to, what's your intent when playing this card most often? Are you holding it for points in the game when you're about to forge, or are you using it for disruption and a tempo boost earlier on when you're not necessarily going to get a key immediately? If it's a card that you're like, no, I'm going to hold this and try and guarantee that I make key 3 next turn, then I'd say that leans more into key safe territory. But I will grant 100% we're kind of, this is sort of semantics, but there is another category of card that's related. Between these two, I mean, do you think that key safes are just kind of better or worse from the game, or these are just kind of, this is a needless distinction and JT's being silly?
Well, you're always being silly, yes, but I don't think
Trick
that
question.
key safes are not necessarily bad for the game. There's nothing bad about them. They're disruption. They're a different element. They're different counterplay, different skills. I think the more interesting question might be: are they better design wise than key cheats? Right, like the ability for you to interact, at least in a small way, with the key safes as you put them. Is that better, more healthy for a game where you don't have that interaction, where the key cheat just gets around that interaction and takes advantage of it in a way? And you could argue that those are maybe not good for the game. I would say key safes are probably better design wise because they at
Mm.
least still give your opponent the option or the ability to kind of do something. Whether that is like, yeah, okay, they're expecting Corner of the Market to prevent them from playing cards. Maybe they need to play that Miasma Bomb or the Lash of Broken Dreams a turn early to make sure that they can still use it on board when the Corner of the Market comes. Something like that. Like there is some interplay with that and interaction with these key safes that I think is a healthy thing for the game.
Trying to imagine a world where, like Coda Untamed got something that was akin to Brain Drain instead of Key Charge, and how that would have impacted things. Yeah, I mean, you still have to worry about the TMTP or Doorstep being in archives, and it's not a perfect
Mhm.
match. But it's, I don't know, interesting thought experiment how it would kind of shape things up. There are certainly feel bads associated with key cheats, and maybe even more so with the heavy disruption key safes. Did I say safes or cheats before? I get mixed up. But like getting hit with Corn in the Market or Tachyon Manifold when your opponent's uh, also on check for key 3, and you're looking at a grip of stuff that's like all ways to take them off check, is a feel bad moment. Like that's a
Yeah.
feel bad moment. Yeah.
I certainly, as a player, I feel worse playing against disruption than I do against key cheats.
Mm.
Doesn't mean that it's worse for the game. It just feels worse as a player to have the disruption.
Oh, a true Spike answer. It feels worse, but that doesn't mean it's worse for the game.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. No, I mean, I totally get it. I think it kind of all comes back to what's the interplay between the cards and the houses mechanically. What checks and balances does this bolster, and what does it break down? Yeah, I think maybe Ecto came in the breakdown category as it shook out. I mean, it's hard to predict these on the offset, I guess. In hindsight, I think we can look back and say that maybe Key Charge and Shoto were kind of more on the like bolstering some of the checks and balances. There's going to be a variety of takes on these. The interaction model does sort of set up this contract where there's going to be anticipated contract, can we say, where there's going to be field bads when folks are stepping out of it.
Well, I mean, you mentioned a couple times now the house rolls, and I think we've seen the house rolls blur a lot, especially the last few sets.
Mm,
Equid or we talked about Geistoid kind of being able to do everything, and it has a good key cheat. Equidon in Winds of Exchange was really able to do everything, and it had a key cheat, not a great one. I've seen it work before as well. Token of Appreciation, where you forge for 13, I think, -1 for each token on board, something
yep.
like that. So it's possible, but like I think the bigger issue there was that Equidon did everything. It had board wipe, it had amber control, it had artifact control, it had some big creatures. and it had targeted creature control. Like it had everything, like, and that to me, I think, is the problem that kind of it makes it worse for the key cheats. And I think people kind of blame key cheats for Grim Reminders being sort of a super powerful set, but I think really it's about the house rules and Grim Reminders that kind of just did everything, that made it worse. It wasn't necessarily the key cheats, but it was also like those houses being able to do everything, and then also, in addition to that, set up those key cheats as well.
Yeah, I think Logos was kind of on the like do everything path for a long time, though not pushed quite as far. Even in Worlds Collide, right? You're stealing, your key cost increasing, you're forging keys. You had artifact ways to deal with artifacts. I don't know. It was kind
Uh,
of falling in that camp.
it had the shark, I think, then even in Wales Collide, right?
Had the shark.
Yeah, Logos has always been the prime example of like, why did they get everything,
Yeah.
and why is poor Brobnar still bad? What's going on here?
Your opponent plays turn one island and keep fortune, you know you're in trouble.
Hmm.
As a running Magic joke, turn one island is a scary play because you're going to face blue, the color that does all the things
Ah,
very well.
that's a good one.
Yeah.
I like that. Well, Turn One Island and Keyforge is just as scary, isn't it?
Yeah, is that the Eddy or the Tau Tau Vapors? I don't know.
No, Island of Misfit Toys.
Oh, that is also scary. That's
Yeah,
also scary.
it works in both games.
I just hit me the other day. Sat down across digitally, sat down across this Grim Reminders deck, and I opened a hand with some disruption. I think it was Eaton's. I think I had an Eaton's jar, and I was like, "Ooh, let me see how they open. I'm gonna get something good with this because I don't think they had any artifact control." Anyway, I was playing Zyger, but they went island, and then it was like boo boo island nonsense on the following turn. I was like, I didn't even get to stop it with my Eaton's jar. Dang it.
No.
I digress. There was one last sort of like thread I wanted to pull on, and I think it's actually a really important thing that key cheats do provide, and that's this concept of reach, which is another term that you hear thrown around in Magic circles, and it's very much tied up in the idea of inevitability and ensuring that the game comes to a close, right? So in Magic, which is a take you from 20 life to zero game, there are cards which can do damage directly to a creature or another thing or a player. And so as soon as you're down to low life totals and your opponent has these spells available to them that can do damage directly to you, you start getting a little worried because you're kind of within the reach of their direct damage effects. So you're kind of within the event horizon potentially. And the analogy here in racing terms is you imagine two people neck and neck on bicycles getting to the finish line, and they're both stretching their hands out trying to get to the finish line. And that's what these cards can provide. They provide you a way to like extend your reach to grasp a victory before your opponent, and possibly in a way that's faster than you would naturally have otherwise, right? So that's kind of the metaphor there,
Hmm.
which I probably botched, but hopefully
Well,
is
it helped me because I hadn't heard this term before, and kind of it's like in Keyforge, if your opponent has a key cheat, like a key charge, for example, and they're playing a Coda deck, once they get to the second key, you no longer just have to be sure you can take them off check. You have to make sure that they don't have enough amber generation in Untamed to pull that off in a single turn. And so that's what like the reach is there, as you described it to me earlier. That really helped me understand the concept. So you're kind of they do give you this reach because they change the game and they change your opponent's mindset for how they have to stop you. They can no longer count on playing a miasma or a TMTP at the right time to take you off check. They really now would be like, okay, they have 3 pips left in Untamed, and they've got 2 Untamed on the board. So I need to keep them below 3 amber or below 2 amber at the start of the turn, something like that, to make sure they can't pull off that Chota. So like you're moving the goalposts, so to speak, because of this reach that the key charges, the key cheats give you in general, right?
yes. And this ties back to what you were saying about having a lot of support or too much support potentially for key cheats, and there being a tipping point in there where it maybe shifts from being sort of this healthy balance to an unhealthy balance. If your reach gets so far that it is untenable for me to manage it, right? Like the bubble of like I can forge a key if I'm within this bubble. Like if have start the turn with 1 amber or 2 amber, right? As soon as you like when you see your opponent with key charge, yeah, I'm like counting your untamed creatures, counting how many pips you have left. I'm like, all right, I have to keep quick draw to 2 amber or below, or he's gonna or he's going to be within reach of forging that third key with key charge. If that reach extends too far, then I think that's where it starts to break down the interaction model, right? And I
Hmm.
think that's why, say, Tachyon Manifold is very, very difficult to manage when you're staring down key three, right? Because you look all across the board, they've got Sandworm and Sandhopper, and you're like, okay, that's 4 amber from hand, 2 pips, like, ooh, extra pips, and they've got their key. I don't have like enough tools to manage keeping you outside of that bubble very effectively. So if that reach extends too far, I think that's when you can start getting into trouble, I guess, is the
Yeah.
point there.
Yeah. Definitely. So can I pivot away from reach, or do you have something else you wanted to bring up about the
Nope.
reach?
I think that was it. I think that the point I was trying to make there is that it can be a very important thing to have in the game, and it can be a very interesting dynamic to add. Like, when I play Sai, another deck that I love to bring up here, it is very different playing that deck versus opponents with key cheats versus without, just because I'm now managing you at your reach as opposed to just getting above kind of the natural forge, and it completely changes how that deck gets played.
Yeah.
And that's very interesting as long as there are meaningful ranges.
Sai being the deck that you have that has two heavy subsidies to make everyone's keys cost 18, which I've actually watched a game with you playing that deck before where your opponent forged a key cheat straight through the 18. It was just like, yep, I'll take 19 for this key charge here.
Worth it.
Worth it, totally fine. But yeah, it does kind of change the equation when you yeah, with the reach that they offer. You
Totally.
had mentioned being a racing game, and I thought this was a great opportunity for us to bring up another Mario Kart analogy here. And I think for anyone familiar with Mario Kart, um, there's so many Keyforge similarities with it. I was trying to figure out like what is the similarity here with key cheats in Mario Kart, and I think it's a shortcut. I think that's one way to look at these cards. So Mario Kart
Mm.
has certain stages where you have certain shortcuts you can take, whether that is like a glitch in the game or an intentional shortcut. Both of them apply, both of them exist. And I think that's really like the real comparison there. Because like let's say you're playing, I think in the old Nintendo 64 version of it, there were some shortcuts that could only be done by characters in certain weight classes. So if you were a
Hmm.
heavyweight, you could go over a certain wall somewhere, but you couldn't do it if you were a lightweight. So if you're playing against someone with a heavyweight, you have to understand like, okay, if they know this shortcut, if they have this shortcut at the right time, they can do that and they have like this additional reach to get to the finish line. So I need to be like, maybe half a lap ahead of them by the time they can actually pull that off. And sometimes I remember as a kid playing this one when you're trying to like jump over this wall and skip half a lap, and sometimes you might like mess up 3 or 4 times, and it doesn't matter because if you get it by like the fifth time, you're still coming out ahead after that. So it's like it's about that quest sort of as well, where you're going on that quest, be like, yeah, this is going to set me back right now. It's a little hard to pull off. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to do it, but if I do, it's worth the reward.
I like that, and I like that there's actually some risk involved, right? That's kind of what makes it interesting.
Mario Kart's a skill game, just like Keyforge. So you got to be able to execute your plan, right? There's no well in Mario Kart, I don't think there's a shortcut where it's just like guaranteed to do it. Maybe your opponent leaves a banana peel right by the shortcut before you get a chance to take it. So there's certain things they can set up ahead of time.
Mm.
But interestingly enough, a lot of shortcuts. If you take a shortcut and someone shoots a red shell at you, which is the heat-seeking shell, it will not find you if you're on the shortcut. Sometimes it won't.
Oh, so sort of the shortcuts or the seeker shell is looking for you on the like path, on the
On the
fairway,
main
as
path,
it were.
yes. Very similar to how in Keyforge you can't interact with your opponent's key cheat. You don't have a chance to stop them. Like once they're in that shortcut, they're going to get it.
I like too the other similarity there where you sometimes just don't make it over make it through the shortcut, and your opponent finishes and they're like, "What were you doing?" And you're sitting there with counting 6 Sanctum cards between hand and archives for
Yep.
4 turns in a row. You're
Yep.
like, "I was one short. It was gonna be great. I don't have any keys now. Sorry, but it
Yep.
was it was almost."
Yeah. For sure.
All right, I'm gradually leveling up my knowledge of Mario Kart, and I appreciate that.
Well, there will be Mario Kart at KFC. You've got to join in
Nice.
this time around. B-Hawk is the Mario Kart supplier. So I'll be bringing my Nintendo Switch controller. Make sure I can jump in that game, and you should do as well.
All right. Well, I'm gonna have some time to practice up, I guess. I don't know. I got
Well, I feel like we've talked about it enough. You should be able to just pick it up. Like you'll be good to go in the first race.
Good to go. Ready to do it. Ready to do it.
And you've played Keyforge, so like, how much different could it be?
If there is as much overlap as you all have been touting, it should be natural.
You should be able to close your eyes and win a race.
We'll go with yes. Cool. I am, looking forward to KFC very much so. You've been cracking some of your pledges, but very, very, very few decks so far.
I actually haven't cracked them. I cracked my Amber Skies named decks, my custom decks, and then I went to my LGS last Friday, same day I got it, and I cracked one Sky Beast deck and opened a key cheat. So
Nice.
I feel like I'm going to retire now. I'm good. I opened up a blue Ember Drake, and the deck is very spicy. Lots of enablers for the Ember Drake. Let's talk about this now before we, we're not going to wrap up just yet. Let's talk about the new sets that are arriving in people's hands now: Ember Skies and Tokens of Change. Ember Skies has 5 key cheats if we count each Ember Drake as a separate, which we do.
Mhm.
You can get decks with multiples. And then it has Freedom to Be, which I have 2 copies of in my Quick Draw deck. Freedom to Be is a Skyborn action, no Amber Pip on it. Forge a key at +4 current cost, reduced by 1 for each Skyborn creature on a flank. So that'll count your Skyborn and your opponents. So I do have a deck with 2 of those.
Mhm.
Pretty cool. It's nice to have the option, nice to have the reach of a key cheat like that, even though it's usually going to be forging at 8, so not as
Yep.
good as even a key charge in Chota that forge at 7. And then the last one is a rare Logos action, Empyrean Charge. Forge a key at +6 current cost, reduced by the total number of cards in both players' archives. Discard each player's archive. So that one is it comes with another special rarity card that comes with it to kind of enable the archive locking on both sides.
Yep.
But that's going to be a pretty powerful one, I think.
Yeah, even just as archive hate, it's going to be powerful. I mean, if your opponent is going to have to think twice about playing Winds of Death when they see it in your list, you may be offering up a free key for your opponent and then also setting yourself back all that setup in one fell swoop. It is quite a beating.
Yeah, it's a very hard counter to Winds of Death. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I actually have a couple decks so far with that in it. Very interesting.
Yeah.
And yeah, interesting to see some of the brews that folks are coming out with, especially on the Alliance side with the Amber Drakes. I did open an Amber Drake deck. Red Amber Drake could pair up nicely with your blue
Yeah.
quick draw. Or
I
is it
think
yellow?
Miggy has a yellow.
We have all the colors.
I think between Yumi and Miggy, we have all 3 of them, and we can make a great alliance with all of them.
There you go. And not only that, but the house with my Drake is a Brobnar Drake with a final refrain.
That's insane.
Okay. So
Insane.
toss all those Drakes in the bin, play your final refrain, and umama, here we go.
There you go. I realized that I didn't even give the text for the Ember Drake. I just assumed that everyone had seen this card already because it's one of the most busted cards I think we've ever seen in Keyforge. There's, like I said, a blue, red, and a yellow. It is a Sky Beast, so they're ultra rare. 8 power, 2 armor dragon, so already a beefy. And then it just has a destroyed effect. Destroyed, gain 4, forge your X color key at current cost. The blue one forges your blue key, red one forges your red key, yellow forges yellow key. So when it dies, it gives you 4 amber, and then after giving you the amber, forges a key at current cost, usually 6. So all it needs is a little bit of support to kill your own creatures, which Dis has quite a bit of. So if you're lucky enough to have Dis in your Ember Drake deck, like I am, it makes it trivially easy to kill it. And it even has value, even if you already have that key forged. Like, you're gaining 4 when you destroy this thing anyway. I mean,
Right.
it's an incredible card. A little too powerful for my liking from a design perspective. Really, like, yeah, that seems obvious. I don't know what else to say about it. It's a very absurd card.
They're very much pushed. I have actually some high hopes, and I've been pretty pleasantly surprised with what I've seen so far coming out of Amber Skies. I think there are a handful of cards that seem really pushed. The overall card pool, I don't know if it's quite as strong as, say, Winds of Exchange or Grim Reminders, but it does seem to have, and I wasn't sure we would see this, but it does seem to have maybe enough tools to mitigate some of what Grim Reminders was doing. So I'm a little hopeful there. Mitigate what it's doing without kind of like stealing the show. It's
Yeah.
hard to say because the pool of decks that I've seen, there's a lot of like middle of the road type decks in there, and we'll see the archine field be defined by the outliers, right? So I haven't seen a great sampling of outlier decks yet, but the middling decks that I've seen have been interesting, and it has shifted potentially my thinking of what I want to play at KFC without putting me in the camp of I definitely want to play Amber Skies.
The question that I've seen asked elsewhere that I think is a very good one is, yeah, Ember Skies has answers for Grim Reminders. Grim
Hmm.
Reminders has answers for Winds of Exchange, and I think Winds of Exchange kind of has answers for Ember Skies.
Hmm.
And so I don't know if that's a good or healthy thing to have in the meta because you're kind of like you're making the rock paper scissor element quite a bit bigger if that meta breakdown works out. You're seeing a lot of the disruption in Winds of Exchange in the large board sizes, perhaps being able to take advantage of Ember Sky's slightly weaker creature control. I think that's debatable
Hmm.
still, but that's kind of the theory that I'm seeing right now. So something to keep an eye on is how those sets match up with each other, and then obviously at KFC, what we see in the Archon events as far as which sets are the biggest.
I will say that from the decks that I've opened so far, I've felt a downtick in the board control that they presented. We'll see what shows up in the Archon field, but I could entertain an argument for Winds of Exchange being strong into Amber Skies for that reason. But we'll see.
The other new set that is coming in pledges now is Tokens of Change. So there are 4 key cheats in Tokens of Change, 2 reprints, which are Key Frog and Obsidian Forge, and then 2 new ones, both specific to a token. So they're rare artifacts that are key cheats. Logos being Beta Forge. It's a robot artifact, gains an amber when you play it. Action, make an Alpha Gamma token, which I have to refresh my memory on what an Alpha Gamma is. You may forge a key at plus 12 current cost, reduced by 1 for each card in your archives. If you forge a key this way, purge Beta Forge. So build up a big archive, forge a key for potentially free. There's no minimum on that one. So the bigger your archive, the cheaper your key is going to be with Beta Forge.
Neat. Yeah, I actually first time I saw this was when we were getting ready to come on and chat this evening. So I've got nothing to say. Even on Alpha Forge, I haven't seen. I don't even know what an Alpha Gamma is. You're making the stuff up over here. Quick draw.
I wish I were sometimes. Um, the other new one is a cool shadows artifact called the Long Con. I love the theme in this one. You know, like we talked with Nick last week about theme and storytelling. This is a pretty cool one. The Long Con is a rare artifact for shadows. It is a card type is plan, which I don't. Do we have plan yet? Is this our first plan trait?
It has to be right with we have a card with plan in the title, don't we? Master plan is an
Is
item.
master plan a plan? No, master plan is not even an item, or not even a plan. How about
Huh.
that? So the long con says action, make a stooge, which is a token. Destroy any number of friendly stooges. If 6 or more stooges are destroyed this way, forge a key at no cost and purge the long con. I played against a long con deck last Friday. It was my opponent's token deck was a long con deck, and so they were able to make a ton of stooges. Stooges are just a 1 power token that I think it just says like action or before fight make a token, something like that.
Hmm.
So you can just kind of like keep making them. Like they call them stooges, which I think is funny because it's like you're not doing anything with them. But then you drop the long con, and it's like, okay, you thought those things weren't doing anything. Well, here they are. They're forging a free key for me here. But then you purge the long con. So pretty cool theme. Um, sort of similar to the Blurpive, but it purges
Mhm.
itself, and it's not quite as easy to get it back from discard.
Yeah, Stooge is interesting. Also, for the Cosmere fans out there, the art makes me think of a coin shot, 100%. But if that's not your jam, then you don't know where I'm going with that.
So yeah, those are the new key cheats in the last 2 sets. And you know, one thing I was thinking earlier is that Behawk would not let us off the hook if we didn't give
Mm.
our direct take to answer the question. So after all we've discussed here, are key cheats good for the game? For Behawk's sake, we need to draw a line in the sand. We need to pick a line, pick a side.
I thought we were going to talk about Desire because he loves his Seven Sins deck.
Oh, we could talk about Desire.
No, it's cool. I think that they are a good part of the game. Yes, I would say yes.
Yeah.
So I come down and say yes, and there's a big asterisk, which is the previous hour of rambling.
I think so too. I think they are good. I think they are necessary, like we talked about since the Coda days. I think the problems that people have with them, I think are kind of what's the right word? It's kind of a red herring, right? Like I think people point to the problem with Grim Reminders being the key cheats, but I think there was a lot of other design issues in Grim Reminders that caused those key cheats to become seemingly an issue. But I agree. I do not think that key cheats are bad for the game. I do think they're good for the game. In a way, they actually increase the ability to interact with your opponent by getting around those TMTP doorstep type examples we gave. And it's just another puzzle for your opponent to solve. Like they have to understand how your key cheat's going to interact with the game and understand the reach that it provides. So I do think they add strategy when you're analyzing lists at the beginning of a game and you see which ones they have and how they can possibly take advantage of that, like a key frog without a fang tooth, maybe a key frog with no way to kill it and untamed, like those kind of things. Yes, they provide reach, but they also allow your opponent to sort of plan for it in what I think is a very good, healthy way.
Astron gets his payout. They forced you to kind of into a position of reward empathy, I guess you could say, because they put you into this mode of anticipatory interaction as opposed to just reactionary, and that's where the strategists kind of make their money.
Yeah, agreed.
Well. Anything else? I think we hit most of the stuff we wanted to hit.
I think we did too.
Very good. Well, folks, this episode of The Bottom Beaker was brought to you by Gambit's Razor, the grooming tool that adds a little thrill to your game. Not only does it provide a smooth, clean shave, but when your blue key is forged, it kicks things up a notch. Experience an electrifying shave like never before as Gambit's Razor delivers a pulse of excitement at just the right moment. Perfect for Archons who enjoy a high-stakes, play-and-sleek style. Gambit's Razor turns a routine job into a strategic advantage. Gambit's Razor. Forge your blue key, feel the rush. There you go. Thank you, Gambit's Razor. Quick Draw, it's been a little while since you've used the old Gambit's Razor.
Probably about 10 years, maybe 15 now.
That is a 10, 15-year beard we're looking at?
No, I trim it. I don't use a razor to trim, though.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
not bad. I'm in the ebb and flow. The tide gets high, and then I pay some change, and then the tide gets low. And so yeah, we're in flux between trimmers and razors and things. But tide's like medium right now.
So do you use Gambit's Razor then?
Do I use Gambit's? Of course I use Gambit's Razor. Proud sponsors of the show.
Yeah. How else will we make money on this?
Absolutely. Ka-ching. Thank you, Gambit's Razor. Oh, indeed. And folks, I want to also let you know that Bottom of the Beaker is recorded live right here, twitch.tv/sloppylabwork at trying to do math. 3:30 in the morning Polish time, Central Eastern European time
4:30
on Thursday morning. Well, it's right now.
Sorry. You're right. I apologize. I interrupted your monologue. I didn't even know what you're talking about.
Math's hard.
I tried to save you, and I made it worse.
It was the thought. I appreciate it. And twitch.tv/sloppylabwork, Wednesday evenings, 9:30 Eastern time. You can find recordings of our past shows and other streams over at youtube.com. We are at Sloppy Lab Work over there. And for the very best content, 57 times distilled and scraped from the bottom of the beaker. Search for that very phrase in your podcatcher of choice, and we'll be there, ready to cheat some keys with you. All that and more at sloppylabwork.com. And Quick Draw, got any words for the folks getting off the final audio step?
Just keep on cheating and stay sloppy out there.